Hello and welcome to day one of Vlog Every Day in April. Today's topic is energy clearing, and this is how we are going to lay the groundwork for this month. We're going to look at the practical ways of clearing energy, and we're going to look at 3 different ways to do that, and hopefully one of them will resonate with you, or perhaps it'll be that you're already working with energy and clearing energy. This might offer you a different perspective, another tool to add to your kit. However it works out, I hope it's a benefit to you. So let's get started. What is energy clearing? We're definitely talking about an intangible here. This isn't taking out a mop or a broom or a vacuum cleaner and cleaning a space. You can consider that the act of energy clearing can be very much like those physical acts using those tools. And in fact, in shamanic exercises, when I was learning about working with energy, we were encouraged to employ energetic tools of that nature. So, the first way of clearing a space is with a pendulum. And this is not something that I was taught. I came upon it I don't even remember when I came upon it. I just know that one time I picked up my pendulum, and for whatever reason, I was guided to ask it to clear the energy of my office. And it cycled through this pretty amazing clearing process. It was several minutes long, and it swung vertically, horizontally, diagonally. It spun counterclockwise or anti-clockwise and clockwise. And when it was finally done, it settled into its yes response for me, and then came to a stop. And it was really fascinating and unexpected. Ever since then, I've used it as a tool in clearing spaces that I'm physically in. I don't tend to work with it with spaces that are far away. I do a lot of clearings. In fact, most clearings that I do are hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from me. And I do it from my office, not with my pendulum, however. So I'll just show you. I'm going to hope it's quickly because my shoulder won't hold up. But if I ask my pendulum to please, actually I'll just say, could you please clear the energy of my desk? Maybe that will be something less than several minutes. Okay. So notice how it started vertically and now it's swinging. From my perspective, it's swinging clockwise. And I'm trying not to watch it too closely because I don't want to get dizzy. And now that clockwise it's less clockwise and more angular. It's almost as though it's making loops of some kind. And in fact, I think if you were looking from above at it, it might even appear that it was making almost a floral kind of design, like a child's kind of floral, and then back into a vertical swing. Does that mean it's complete? Yeah. So, I mean, there's a reason that I asked it just to clear my desk, the energy of my desk. Because even that, first of all, physically I could deal with it. However, I don't want to spend, a long period of time making you watch my pendulum go through hoops here. That gives you a little bit of an idea of what might happen. One thing I encourage my clients to do is not expect anything in particular. Keep a really open mind about what your pendulum, if you have one, might do in a space. The other thing I'm guided to mention is you want to make sure you have a nice, strong chain or cord or whatever it may be that holds your pendulum. I have had pendulums break on me before in spaces that were very energetically active because it was spinning so hard that the chain that it was on just couldn't take the tension. So be aware of that. And also, I don't know if you noticed, the tab of mine came off. And I don't want a new pendulum yet. I'm not done with this one yet. It's not done with me yet. But there will probably come a point where that'll have to be switched out. I'm so sad. But anyway, yeah, just make sure that you can have a good grip in it. And yeah, just make sure that the chain is strong. Okay? Now, oh boy, so I do channeling, and I can tell that my guides want to say something. So I'm going to let them say something hopefully related to what we're talking about here. We notice that also as you are working with the pendulum energy, we would ask for you to notice if you are guided to a certain portion of a room or a space, a home, a property that you are assisting. We would ask for you to be in attention to your clairvoyance, to your clairsentience, that you will know where you will wish to bring the pendulum, hold the pendulum, that will be most productive. Okay, I love that. Yes, and absolutely. Especially, I feel like with a pendulum, I'm trying to think if I could just ask it to clear the whole house, if that would be productive. No, this is more, I would call it spot clearing, or room by room clearing, and that's how I've used it, going into someone else's home that is in need of some assistance, working with it on a room by room basis, and really noticing where I'm pulled toward that needs the most attention. Because if you can get to the root of it with your pendulum, so you walk into a room and you're guided to a particular corner, starting there, it's likely that's going to be the root of energetic disturbance, and then from there you can find out what else in the room might need it. But it might be that that's the only place in the room that needs it, that will, as I just heard, contain the energy and rebalance it. Okay? Anything else about the pendulum? No. All right. So the second way that you can work with energy clearing or effect energy clearing is just completely using your intuitive senses. So we're talking about clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, clairsentience, which is clear feeling, clairaudience, which is clear hearing, and also clairgustance, which is clear tasting, clairalience, which is clear smelling, and I know I've missed one, claircognizance, which is clear knowing. So, as I said, most of the clearings that I do are done remotely. And so I make a point of telling clients I don't want any information, no details. If they have a concern, it may be that they email me and say, just this is what's going on. And that's okay to a degree. I'll still be very careful about how I'm reading it. I might even close the email and start a new one to reply to them so that I don't start reading too much into what they've written. I really prefer to go in as cold as possible, because I find that in that way I'm seeing what needs to be seen and not what the client thinks needs to be seen, if that makes sense. So entering a space remotely using clairsenses, it's a remarkably physical experience for me, because I can feel surfaces, I can tell what flooring is, I can tell what the walls feel like in certain places. And I couldn't say that I could do like an entire house and identify everything. That would be extreme. It would take a whole heck of a lot of energy and a whole heck of a lot of time. Those things that I feel tangibly are necessary. It's something that pertains to what's going on, or as I just heard, it's an anchor point. So I can say it's the area where there's the wood floor and the wall surface has mottled areas or something like that. I mean, I can, sometimes I'm shown even flash images of furniture, rugs, paintings on walls, things like that, again for anchor points, so I can really be clear about what I'm noticing. And then, so that's all clairvoyance, right? That's all clairvoyance, except the feeling the textures part is clairsentience. So then I really kind of take things on a room by room basis, and yet at the same time I'm open to where I'm most needed. What are the areas that need servicing, truly? I don't know why, but is it because of me? No. Somebody who's watching this video, whoever you may be, I'm guided to a basement, and I can tell that the walls of the basement, cinder block, I believe, and then the floor is dirt, and it doesn't feel, well, parts of it are packed down, other parts are almost loose, like there's excess dirt or something. So for whatever reason, I'm guided to this space, and so if I arrived at a person's house remotely and that was the first space I was guided to, that's where I'd begin, because chances are that is the hot spot, so to speak. Now in this case, I'm actually being asked by my guides to do a 3D view of this space I'm in. So when I look at this space, I can tell all the walls are cinder block. I don't see any cement on the floor. I can tell that there is one, maybe two small windows. They wouldn't be big enough to climb out of if there was a fire or something. But what is it about this space? Why was I drawn here? Okay, so I want to find north. Can I find north in this space? Okay, so I'm facing north in this space just so I have a frame of reference. And I noticed an energy in one of the corners. Okay, so this is north. So it's in the southeast corner of this space. Let me see if I'm supposed to talk about what I'm actually seeing there. Yeah, I'm seeing an energetic reflection of, and I'm getting really emotional, this is really hard, of a small child curled up in that corner. So, and the thing is, I can tell that this is the clothing that this child is wearing, I believe it's a girl, is not of this era. It looks like a little nightgown or maybe a cotton dress. Probably comes to her knees or just above her knees. And she has bare feet, and I can tell she has bruises on her arms. And probably has bruises elsewhere. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. So this is the root of whatever is going on in this person's home. Whoever this is, whichever of you is watching this. And what needs to happen here is this little girl needs to be helped. She needs to be, as I just heard, lifted or raised into the light so that her energy can be resolved. And that will resolve whatever's going on in the house. So how do we do that? With energy clearing of this nature, first of all, understand that this is just from the way that she's appearing to me. She's tremendously fearful. And so we act with complete compassion. We have to be so careful. If you're a woman, become very maternal. If you're a father or a man, become very paternal. Really make sure that your energy is oozing compassion, okay? And because with that, then, we can approach this child without scaring her any further and help her to understand that we are here to help her. We are here to take care of her. So I'm approaching this little girl. And she's letting me take her hand. And so then what I do is I invite the source light to come in. And yes, it will engulf me as well as her because I'm holding her hand, and that's fine. And then I just heard her say, "Mommy," and I could feel her hand. It's just like it faded. It faded out of my hand. And she is gone. So then what I do is I invite that light to illuminate that corner and also the rest of that cellar space to really assist it to be cleared. And it's as if, I don't know, a bunch of LED lights were just put on in there. It's that blue light, that really stark light. And that space is cleared. So I didn't know that was going to happen. However, that gives you an example of what can happen. Let's talk about the opposite. Because let's suppose that we go into a space in that way and we encounter, I'm going to call it a dark energy, because I figure that will resonate more than if I use a different term. And in that case, yes, we can absolutely practice compassion. Are we going to approach that energy? No, we aren't. Instead, we are going to invite the light in, and we're going to invite the light to surround that dark energy and assist it into the light. Now here's where clairvoyance will serve you really well, although I'm shown that clairsentience will help too, because you'll feel the difference if you can't see the difference. In my experience, most dark energies are more like that little girl. They're a spirit of a human that didn't enter the light when they passed for whatever reason. It sometimes happens. And they have been accumulating all this egoic energy. And so eventually it comes across, they just look like either a dark shadow or a dark mass. And when the light hits them, surrounds them, infuses them, embodies them, if they were in fact a human at one point in time, then those layers of darkness will be stripped away, and you'll actually see what they looked like in their human form before they're taken into the light, which is pretty cool. So, but again, I just heard approach with caution, and I would encourage not approaching. Once you identify that that's what's happening, invite the light in. If you feel at all threatened, invite Archangel Michael to assist you, invite an ascended master that you work with, whatever works for you. But absolutely ask for some energetic backup, some spiritual backup, okay? All right, well, gee, anything else to say about that? So, not about that in particular, but that's how it would start. Again, in this instance, wherever this space was, that was the root of whatever was happening in other parts of the house, because I can tell it wasn't contained there. That's where the root was, and yet there was probably noticing other disturbances in different parts of the house. So then what I will do is exit the basement, and in this instance, I'm guided to look at the house first from the front, wherever this is. And I'm not being shown details, so this is really interesting how privacy is being honored here. I can't see what the house looks like, so I try to identify it. But what it's like I'm looking through the entire house. So what I'm looking for is to notice any discolorations, energetically speaking, or just anything else I'm drawn to. Now I can tell actually that in this home there's 2 stories above the basement, and on this first story, the kitchen, I think it's the kitchen, or is it a bathroom? Kitchen is at the back right corner of the house. I can feel it, and I'm smelling it. And I'm saying I'm smelling it because I can smell mold. So whoever owns this kitchen is having some sort of a water problem, whether they know it or not. So whether there's leakage under the sink, yes, and also I just heard behind the wall. So wherever the sink or wherever the plumbing is in the kitchen, there's been or is some sort of a leak that has created a mold problem both underneath the sink and behind the wall at that point. So that's, and I just heard remediation is needed. Okay, so this is one of the fine details that I would bring to the attention of the homeowner, because I can't clear the energy of the mold, not really. I can clear the space, because things like mold, yes, can have an energetic reverberation into the space. That part I can clear. And then it's important to mention to the homeowner or business owner that they'll want to have that checked out. Okay? Now, I'm also being asked to show at this point that it's almost like they're bringing my hand to the wall, and I can tell the surface of the wall underneath the sink feels very mushy to me, which is kind of gross, and a little bit damp. So there's again that physical corroboration, if you will, of there being a water problem there. Anything else to say about energy clearing? So, and I'll tell you here, I mentioned that I smelled the mold. So there's the clairalience. People sometimes wonder why I talk about all the clairsenses. Most people want to know about clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairsentience, yeah, maybe, clairaudience. And as far as clairalience and clairgustance goes, most people are like, those are kind of toss-offs, and not in my experience. They can be super helpful. So, and then so as far as the clairgustance goes, the clear tasting goes, I'm actually tasting cinnamon in that space. So now I'm wondering, has someone recently been cooking in that space? I'm getting a yes, and they've been cooking with cinnamon. So is that something that I might mention in my report? I guess I could. I mean, it would be kind of fun actually to mention it and see if there was any response to that. Is it important? That's something I would actually ask my guides. Is it important to mention the cinnamon? No. It was more for an example for this video. Was there really cinnamon in the space though? Yes. So there you go. All right. anything else about that? Anything else to see in this space that we're supposed to work with? No. And so here I'm going to mention this too. I mentioned that there can be energetic reverberation into a space, like with mold and stuff like that. I did not address that energy. And I can see it, it's appearing as almost like a foggy energy in the kitchen space. I don't have permission from this homeowner to do anything in their house. There's a difference when it comes to spirits like that little girl. That is not considered private domain, that's considered public domain, if you want to look at it that way. So coming across a spirit energy like that, I don't need anyone's permission to help her except double checking with my guides that that's what's needed. And once I get a confirmation of that, I can take care of it. As far as doing any other work in this house, whoever it is, wherever it is, I don't have permission. So I can't do anything else in this house except view it because it's being offered to me and use it as a guide for this video. So what I will say is that at this point in the process, I would scan the rest of the first floor, asking if there's anything else that is needed help with. I would then go to the next floor and do the same process all over again. I would check if there's an attic space. I can tell with this house is a crawl space. The feeling that I have is that in the middle, I would be able to almost stand up. I mean, I'm 5'4". I might be able to stand up, but it feels like my head would be brushing the top, the peak. And then I will usually, before I consider that I'm done, do what I call my Google Earth view and look down through the building and notice if there's anything that I didn't pick up on the first time. And that also is like, I just heard clean sweep. So that would be my clean sweep moment to make sure everything was taken care of. And then how I like to finish with a clearing of that nature is to bring through, and it's a sort of a wind, an energy wind, it's a light wind, and invite that to sweep through and take out any, minute particles that might be remaining and really reboot the space. Okay? So that's the second way of approaching energy clearing. Notice that we're talking about spaces, not people. I wonder if we're even going to talk about people. No, just spaces for this time around. So then the third way of clearing a space is using energy work. And I don't mean, yes, it was energy work that we were just discussing, but I mean specific, like Reiki, healing touch, that sort of thing, that you can employ the way that you work with that energy, the way you know to work with that energy, to also clear a space. There's really no difference between using Reiki to affect healing on a person or affect healing on a space. And yes, if you have the Reiki certification or attunement, I should say, attunement, that has you work with distance healing, then you could do remote clearings using Reiki. Otherwise, as far as the hands-on, in-person kind of thing, I would again just practice caution. Just be really aware of how you're feeling in a space, what you're noticing. If you're feeling discord from, let's say you walk into a space, you walk through a door, and like the opposite side of the room with a space, you're feeling that that's where the discord is, it may be that you don't want to actually go to that area. You want to be paying attention to that. It may be that rather than actually walking over to that opposite side, that you work with your hands, send Reiki to that area first. Let that be the way that you approach it first. Okay? Anything else to say about that? No. So that's just a very basic, no, it's sort of basic. I'm looking at the clock showing me how long I've been talking here, and it's over 30 minutes, and I'm kind of gobsmacked. I didn't expect it to be this involved. However, there was a reason for it. There's a reason for everything. And so here's me going with the flow and knowing that it will be of benefit. And thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave them in comments so that we can have a conversation, and maybe your question will be someone else's question so they can get an answer too. Okay? All right. Until tomorrow, take really good care. Lots of love.